We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we're going to be talking about the most popular watch models and brands that we see being purchased and traded. Of course, we have insight into this because of Del Rey Watch, where we buy, sell, and trade watches. And we keep really great data. We have a couple of systems that we've used that we've built out, fully customized for what we do and the kind of the buying and the trading side of the watch industry. And we keep track of all this data because it helps us to not only build a better business, but also stock the watches that people want. And I've compiled a list here of the watches that in some cases I believe are pretty shocking that have increased in popularity in the last 2 months. And by the way, we're only going to be looking at the last 2 months, so this is current data, but also this can be helpful for you because if anything on this list is something maybe you've been on the fence about, now would probably be a really great time. Or if any of these watches you have in your collection, now is also probably a pretty great time to sell it if you were thinking of selling it, because some of these watches I don't quite understand, but some of these watches I definitely understand why they're so popular in terms of people adding them to their collection recently. On the wrist today, I have a Breguet Classique Tiffany dial, signed and retailed on the dial where normally Breguet would put the number or the reference of this watch. This has Tiffany & Co. on the dial, so pretty cool. And I have it on this pretty cool blue strap here. Really love this watch. Doesn't get enough wrist time. And guys, once again, please check out delreywatch.com. So the first watch on the wrist, and I made a video maybe 2-3 months ago about this, kind of noticing that the popularity has been increasing so much for this particular model. This is the Omega Seamaster ceramic bezel. Now, this is with the wave dial, so this is the recent iteration. The previous flat dial, that was very popular, and it's a great watch. I used to own it myself. I ultimately sold it because the bracelet was a little bit too heavy for me. But nonetheless, this latest iteration with the wave dial, these have literally been flying off the shelves. And we sell new watches, but we do it through this kind of connection service where we connect those that are looking to buy a new watch with an authorized dealer, and we pair them up and we get them the best price. And we are back ordered on the Omega Seamaster ceramic bezels, and we just keep getting in more orders. So some of the models we know we just can't even get in stock, particularly on the bracelet, the white dial, black bezel. That is just so difficult for an authorized dealer to get. Now, if you purchase directly from Omega, of course, the likelihood of you buying this watch is going up, but keep in mind you don't get a discount. Omega does not discount their product directly. An authorized dealer will because they're third party, but Omega's not going to. So, the people in the comments that are going to say, oh, I walked in my boutique and they had one. Yes, of course, the company that makes the watches are going to have them, but there's not a boutique in every city. They have, handfuls of boutiques around the world compared to the authorized dealer network, which has many, many, many more stores. So something to keep in mind. But the Omega Seamaster ceramic bezel, between all the colors and variations and bracelets and strap combinations, we sold more of these watches than any other watch in the last 2 months. Now, this is really mind-blowing in my opinion, because when people think of watches, they think Rolex. They think Rolex Submariner. You must be selling Rolex Submariners all day. Well, what might be the most in-demand watch out in the world might not necessarily be the watch that gets traded the most, because people on the other end are asking the most for the watches, and we can maybe get one or less per month brand new directly from authorized dealers, and that is really difficult. That's really calling in favors anyway. So when it comes to Rolex, I will say Rolex does eventually come up on this list, but Omega is just doing a really great job right now, because the next most popular watch we have sold at Del Rey is actually the recent Omega Speedmaster Professional. The Omega Speedmaster Professional, the new version that they just came out with. Some people, yeah, sure, they were complaining. They said, the case is a little bit too sharp. The bracelet pinches my wrist. I think that's kind of an isolated thing. Maybe with people that have, an extra amount of arm hair or something that would get caught in the bracelet. I could see that potentially happening if the links are a little bit close to each other. But I haven't heard a lot more of that since kind of those critiques or criticisms came out when the watch came out. I haven't heard a lot more. If any of you have this new watch, leave it in the comments below. Would love to hear it. I tried on the watch. I didn't really have a problem with it myself, and I have a smaller wrist, so maybe it's a larger wrist kind of thing. Not totally sure. Love to hear it, but the Omega Speedmaster is absolutely killing it. People really do love this iteration. Now, taking us into the next most popular model, this is going to be the Rolex Submariner. Now, I kind of combined all of the different Submariners together, and this is the ceramic bezel. So this is going to be the current, the 41, as well as the 40, both the previous, the maxi case, and the non-maxi case. I combine them together because it seems like what I'm noticing with working with some collectors is that collectors are sometimes on the fence right now. Do I get the last one? Do I get the new one? Which one's going to be worth more? I recommend, if you're out there, you're on the fence between the current version, Omega, I'm saying Omega, but it's the Rolex Submariner ceramic bezel, or the previous version, I would just go with whatever fits better on your wrist. Don't necessarily be concerned about, the couple percent price difference. If you're not going to wear the watch and you don't like it, why even bother yourself with it, right? So go for the one, in my opinion, because I get asked this all the time, the one that fits better. But of course, it is a Rolex Submariner. People still do want it. Let's see what happens in the future. I'm really curious to see what goes on in the future with the Rolex Submariner when companies like Omega are really pushing the envelope. Next, I kind of combined all of these watches together because there's so many different models, but I've noticed there becomes such a demand for Girard-Perregaux. Now, those of you that know Del Rey watch, the kind of watches that we like, kind of behind the scenes, what we have in our collection. You might say, oh, you're a little bit biased because you really enjoy Girard-Perregaux, but for the right reasons. And I'm not the only one that talks about it. So many other people talk about it. And this is an old world brand. They're one of the oldest brands in existence. And they make in-house movements, and they offer some great value, especially when you get into a Girard-Perregaux pre-owned. And I would say a year ago doesn't even touch anywhere near close to the demand that we're seeing currently for Girard-Perregaux today. Now, this could be a byproduct of all watches kind of going up in demand and people kind of feeling like they might miss out, kind of that fear of missing out or missing the boat or missing the train kind of mentality. I see a little bit of that as well. People kind of saying, well, if I don't get the watch now, they're disappearing and people are collecting more. I see some of that, but this could also be that people are starting to notice kind of the brands that are outside of that Rolex, Patek Philippe, now getting into Omega, the kind of the most popular brands. People are branching out and looking for a great value and caring a little bit more about the intricacies of the watches and finding value in other places besides the brand name. And we can see it with what happened with FP Journe, obviously taking off and skyrocketing the last few years. 5 years ago, FP Journe was reserved for only those that really cared about the minutia in the watches today. I mean, some would even consider it to be nerdy, right? People say, FP Journe is for the nerds. I'm going to get myself a Rolex Daytona. Now you see people preferring the same type of person, the somewhat casual collector, preferring the FP Journe just because of, more interest in kind of the minutia behind this. And that's something I see when we look at another popular brand. And this is something that I believe because it's real, but it's hard to believe on the outside looking in. Urban Jurgensen, a high-end independent manufacturer that has been out for quite some time now, quite a long time, in fact. But for whatever reason, people I feel like are trying to find the next Journe, the next this, and they're getting into these independents. And it shows when you can sell, a dozen Urban Jurgensens. I think that's pretty mind-blowing. You tell someone else in the watch industry that's been out there, been a dealer for a very long time, it blows their mind. They don't believe it. They want to give you more of them on consignment so we can sell it for them. So Urban Jurgensen, believe it or not, is doing incredibly well right now, but the same could be said for other high-end independents. Now, Tudor, of course, it makes the list because Tudor is really popular. Tudor is really in the minds of every collector, whether it's for good reasons, bad reasons. They put the sapphire case back. Some people hate it. Some people love it. They use the sterling or the silver cases, and the gold cases charge a high premium, and they hate it. They love it. The Daytona-esque Tudor chronographs that came out, they hate it. They love it. Regardless of whether you love it, you hate it, or you're indifferent, Tudor is in the minds of every collector right now because they're doing so many things. And it really shows on the books. Tudor is doing really well, and a lot of people want to add Tudor to their collection. At the same point, on the other hand, a lot of people are trading in Tudor. Now, this is another video for another time, but just to kind of foreshadow, Tudor was our number 1 or number 2, depending on the range of months, watch brand for trade-ins. So something for me to analyze and kind of report back at a later date, but Tudor is incredible in terms of kind of just the trading volume that I see. And Ming, lastly, Ming. Now, we didn't sell a lot of Ming, but comparatively to some of the other lesser known, or if we were to take a look at their production volume, which is very small, and compare it to how many of them that we sold, it's pretty unbelievable. And that's probably actually the highest if we took the production volume of Ming compared to how many Del Rey watch sold. Ming is the highest, but it makes the list because it shows that people are getting into this Ming brand from either a flipper perspective, they buy it to resell because the demand seems to be really high in terms of the secondhand market, or they're buying it because of the buzz, they don't fall in love with it, and they eventually sell the watch. I don't know. I thought the Ming watches that we had through the door here, we had the diver as well as the one of the other ones, we had a couple of versions. I thought they were pretty well made. The case construction was on point. Pretty much as good as it gets at this price point. But what do you guys think about Ming watches? I would love to hear it. Once again, the designs are cool. The case construction is there. The quality is there. But I'm not sure about it long term as a going concern, just being a micro brand. And there's so many micro brands out there, so the competition's very high. When you start scaling, I'm not sure. Anything could happen. What do you think about Ming? Leave it in the comments below. So guys, just wanted to share with you kind of a little bit of behind the curtain, what we deal with and what the watches and brands are that are becoming very popular. Thanks guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.